Access to finance has been a perennial problem for the MSME sector in the country. While a lot has been done, access to funds for millions of small businesses in the country continues to be a problem. To get a sense of what the status is and the scope of MSME financing, we have with us today Mr. Sudarshan Chari, Executive Director and Head, Business Banking, DBS Bank of India. Mr. Chari, thank you for joining us today. Let's jump right into the question. The first one would be, what is the status of formal sources of financing for MSMEs?
Broadly, we categorize that into three parts. We One is the banking. Within banking, you have the public sector bank, the scheduled commercial bank, the cooperative banks, the regional rural banks. So that's banking. Second is the non-banking financial institutions. They take a good significant share for SME financing and lending. And the last part is not really financing, but source of capital, which is venture capital. The SME IPO that happens in the NSE and the BSE. Those are the sources of capital. So broadly, if you have to split it, two sources of debt, which is banking and non-banking financial institution, and one source of capital, which is the private capital, venture capital, and the public capital. So that's the way the formal sources of capital requirement for MSMEs are met.
Right. So you've been associated with the sector for a long time. What are the problems you think, when it comes to MSMEs tapping the formal sources of finance? And what are the factors that hinder their access?
The MSMEs by nature, given their size, and given the fact that they're just scaling up and they are small organizations, you don't find them the most organized. So since they are not the most organized, the data requirement or elements that you need for underwriting a credit is generally a bit dispersed. It's not available in the way and form lenders want to consume. So that's been an historic issue. And the second issue is that given there is a limited capital that an MSME has deployed in its business, generally the lenders look for security beyond the business to secure the credit facilities that the lenders want to extend. So these are the primary, I would not say challenges, but limitations when one comes to extending credit to MSMEs in India. A lot has been done over the last 4-5 years on the first point, which is data. What lenders, banks are trying to do is not rely on MSMEs largely and try and fetch data independently. And that is possible now because of the digital revolution, because of bureau scores, because of data that is available, which can be independently fetched. Those data are fetched, and for up to a certain size of credit, the lenders look to leverage on that data to decide, on the underwriting. So that solves the data problem, and that's a big problem to solve. So once you've solved for the data problem, then comes the security. So on the security side, it's not solved fully. It is work in progress as we speak. A lot of work is being done on receivable financing where there is a linkage for an MSME linked to a large corporate. And there is a lot of work being done to enable that piece of financing, that leg of financing, because the underlying thesis is that if we can establish a trade transaction, and if there is a supply already made or an invoicing done, can we finance that without collateral free? And if you're able to do that, then you pretty much solve all the issues, right? You solve the data issue, which means underwriting could be faster, financing could be made available faster. And you also solve for the collateral issue by financing trade. Data issue largely solved, still some work, but I think if I have to put a percentage to it, 75-80% data is solved. On the security side, I think it's 20-25% progress. There is a lot that can be done on the security side. So those are broadly the challenges and the way outs really to kind of augment SME financing in India.
One of the whenever I have a conversation with MSMEs, one of the frequent things that I keep hearing is that banks are reluctant to lend. As a lender, what would you like to tell the MSMEs? What are the problems that you face when it comes to dealing with small businesses?
one of the biggest challenges that lenders go through is compliances, both understanding of the compliance and thereby following the compliance. Many a times the compliances may not be understood by the MSMEs. Purely, you can call it as ignorance. And that becomes a bit of a challenge, because if there is a downturn and when the lenders find non-compliance, pretty much the tap on credit is kind of shut. And that poses a lot of problem for a business which is scaling up, which is new, which is just started with limited capital. Second is the non-compliance knowingly. I mean, that is a bigger risk. And there has been precedents in the past where we found MSMEs being non-compliant, which is where the lenders would want to have a very restrictive facility, would demand security. All of that is trying to solve for the compliance issue, really. So if I have to meet an MSME, if you are opening your data room to the lenders, if you're allowing the lenders to fetch data independently at the frequency at which they want to, and if you're borrowing money for the purpose that you're borrowing and you're using that for that purpose only, then you don't have to be worried. Because if you're borrowing money for working capital and you use it for working capital purposes only, then I don't think you will land in any trouble, because all lenders are flexible to that extent. Only when you start having non-compliances and you are not willing to share data to the lenders, that's when nervousness creeps in, and that's where challenges starts emerging. So that would be my advice to MSMEs: be as transparent to the lender as you can, and I don't think there is dearth of financing available.
Right. What is the role of credit rating agencies and MSMEs? We also hear about the account aggregator framework. Do you think that will be better?
See, I will take the second one first. Account aggregator is an initiative where you will have a common rail where data will flow seamlessly, and on a authentication based methodology, the borrower can actually ask the lender to fetch data from that rail. And take an example of a bank statement. So you have a bank statement of a borrower on a rail. He wants to take additional financing. He goes to another bank. The other bank can fetch that data from the rail through an authentication mechanism provided by the borrower. So what it does is that it firstly makes it absolutely digital. It makes documentation virtually down to zero. And since it's a common rail and data is available, fetching and using data for underwriting purposes becomes extremely seamless. What it means is that underwriting can be quick, fast, timely, and without too much of hassle for the SME. So that will free up a lot of bottleneck issues, if at all there are, on the process side. On the credit rating part of it, see, the credit rating, there is still some work needs to be done, in the sense that the rating agencies have to go a bit deeper, and the market has to get a little deep. Because what happens is that today, rating is not mandatory. So, and also rating, if an MSME wishes to do a rating for 1 year and doesn't do a rating for the following year, his rating gets suspended. So, so that piece, the process around it has to be refined a little more. I don't think we can make rating mandatory, because that's a choice of the lender. But there has to be some benefits to the MSME if an MSME goes down the path of getting his company rated. If there are no benefits, no one is going to do that. I mean, because it's a compliance, that the MSMEs, they incur a cost for doing it. So if there are benefits attached, it could be in terms of commercials that the lender is wanting to attach to, or some other benefit the MSME will derive from doing a rating, then you can actually have more adoption on the ground. And as the rating market becomes more liquid and more enhanced, you will see more use cases emerging out of ratings. At this point in time, the way I see it, if you look at the entire market, the broad market, ratings have a smaller role to play. However, account aggregator, I believe, will be quite disruptive. And it is something the banks, lenders, and the MSMEs have to really look forward to, because it will just ease the way credit underwriting is done.
So, the Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises, the CGT MSE scheme, has been around for some time now. Do you think that needs a relook?
I think lately the government did a relook. In fact, they also enhanced the cap for CGT MSE. That's a move in a right direction. It kind of enables MSME to borrow without collateral, and the scheme necessarily says that the lender cannot take any security for the lending which is done under the scheme, which is very great. And that solves the second issue that I mentioned in the first question that you posed about challenges that MSME faces. And also CGT MSE has widespread usage. I mean, if the amount of mobilization that happens under CGT MSE, I mean, there is significant amount of mobilization that happens. What government can look to do is keep reviewing the cap timely because of inflation and because of the pace of growth. A cap that has been set 2-3 years prior may not be really appropriate 2-3 years ends. So that way you have to keep reviewing the cap and see if the number can be increased, which means that you can accommodate more MSMEs and more requirements through the scheme. Second is the process of doing the claim. If it is really clear, straightforward, and single window, timely claim processing, that will kind of build a lot of confidence under the scheme amongst the lender community. I'm not saying it's not there now, but I'm saying more work can be done and can be more seamless. So that will then ensure that every lender has some pie in that scheme, and eventual beneficiary is MSMEs.
Right. We all know that there's a huge funding gap when it comes to MSMEs. What do you think is the role of technology in it? And is it maybe overhyped at the moment? I mean, given the nature of MSMEs in the country.
Technology has caught up quite a bit. I mean, what we have seen in the last 10 years is something that we have not seen in the last 30-40 years, really. And what we might see in the last 5-7 years, the next 5-7 years, it could be more disruptive than what we have seen in the last 10 years. So technology certainly has a very, very important role to play. It was on the side for quite some time. Now it's actually become center and square. And what I believe is that embracing technology and adoption is the name of the game. I mean, you cannot ignore technology, and the role technology is going to play across enablement of finance, getting banking hassle-free, initiation of banking for MSMEs across all aspects, really. And what will happen eventually is that technology enables banking or lending to an MSME, and the data or the credit history that an MSME develops enables the MSME to go to the next level, really. And that's the way this will all pan out, right? And a lot of technology ecosystem is also developing, like a Web3 or a blockchain kind of systems. Eventually, all of it will go to the last mile. Everyone is going to, in some form and shape, take advantage of those technological developments, and all of it is aimed at making the process streamlined, making the entire banking experience hassle-free, documentation less. It's all focused on a superior customer journey or a customer experience, and technology will deliver that for the customer. So what it would mean is that the MSME takes their eye off banking and focuses on that business. It's a bit like the way DBS logo is, right? It talks about live more bankless. So you do your stuff and leave the banking to us. I mean, something similar, really. And technology could be the enabler for it. That's the way I see, and it's a very important role that technology is going to play.
Right. Last question before we let you go. What is your wish list from Budget?
Specifically to focus on what I'm looking forward to, some of these sectors like exporters. I mean, something which, MSMEs, there are quite a few exporting MSMEs in the country. And there is a big opportunity that is there because of globalization and general geopolitical scenario that we are in today. So the government could possibly look to set up an export promotion fund, enabling MSMEs to become more aware or more popular in the markets that they want to serve. That would go a long way in boosting exports. So that is something that I'm thinking that could come through. Second is that there is already tax rebates available for newly established entities. If the subsidy scheme around interest equalization can be broad-based, there is an interest equalization scheme that is available for exporters that could be broad-based. If a subsidy scheme can be developed for specific industries. So those are the things that government can kind of come in and play a role. What we are seeing is that with there is China substitution going on, there is a market that India can cater to. There's a big market outside India that India can cater to, and that's where I think the government should focus and incentivize MSMEs to export more and bring foreign currency reserves for the country.
Thank you so much. For any business to operate successfully, capital is crucial. Indian MSMEs would be hoping that the FM provides measures to ensure access to funding becomes easier. Thank you, Mr. Chari, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
From a possible global recession to high inflation to uncertainty around consumer sentiment, anxiety among Indian small businesses was palpable for much of 2022. It is not surprising that all eyes are now on the finance minister to provide some relief and give direction to the economy through Budget 2020. But what do MSMEs want from Nirmala Sitharaman? And can she provide a model to build a resilient SME sector? To get some answers, we have with us today Madan Padaki, co-founder and CEO, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship; Anil Bhardwaj, Secretary General, Federation of Indian Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises; and Rajiv Chawla, founder and chairman, IamSME of India. Good to have all of you with us today. So, Bhardwaj, let me come straight to and let us get some idea about what is the current status of MSMEs in the country, and what are the kind of challenges that we are facing.
Thank you, first of all, for this opportunity. Well, see, the post-COVID, the MSME sector is recovering. Some segments have recovered faster, such as auto component, pharmaceuticals, processed food, and also segments catering to public procurement, riding high on higher public spending. As the RBI data also reflects that quarter ending September 2022, MSMEs noted a credit growth of around 17%, which is way high if you compare in the same period, which was 7%. But some sectors remain struggling. Exporters or suppliers which were capturing to, for example, Europe particularly, they were hit. Consumer spending, as you know, is affected due to high inflation there, and industrial sectors due to shortage of energy because of the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. So, I mean, there are many challenges that they face. As you know, MSMEs are not a homogeneous set. So different MSMEs face different challenges, that too at multiple fronts. I look at it, I mean, in short and medium term, the challenges with regards to finance and technology. So typically, micro needs funds without collateral to start business. There, the cost is not that much critical. But medium enterprises or larger segment of small enterprises, they want to get rid of BLR ratings. They want funds without any additional collateral for expansion. But the most important thing or most important challenge, as we see, is in the area of technology. A large number of product categories which were reserved historically for small-scale industries, which now is termed as MSMEs, they suffer from technology gaps, from umbrella to electrical switches to garments to furniture. So massive tech upgradation is needed. PIL type of schemes won't help much because they require very huge outlay to take advantage. I think for technological upgradation, different schemes might be needed. For medium and long-term challenges, I mean, the most important is which are characterized by global standards related to climate change, digital technologies, including e-commerce. So I think this is a complex set of challenges, as well as what the current situation is in the MSME space.
Right. I think technology upgradation is one thing that we talked with Mr. Chawla in the pre-budget 2022 panel discussion that we had, and it continues. We'll come to that later. Mr. Padaki, if I can come to you, what do you think are the challenges for MSMEs at the moment, and where do they stand currently?
Hi, and thank you for having me on the show. Glad to be here amongst friends and discussing a very critical topic that can make or mar our economy, about MSMEs and their growth. If I were to put myself in the shoes of the several MSMEs that we interact with on a daily basis, there are the following 4 or 5 key thoughts going through my mind on a daily basis, right? One, how do I sell more? How do I get more footfalls? Where businesses have rebounded from COVID, several sectors are not anywhere close to the levels they were there at pre-COVID levels. So I'm still concerned about getting more customers, getting more footfalls into the store, shop, whatever I'm selling, right? Secondly, the last year we've done a lot of work around delayed payments, and delayed payments for MSMEs continue to be a huge challenge, impacting their cash flows, impacting the ability to grow, etc. How do I collect, and how do I collect faster? Third, the regulatory challenges abound. Ease of doing business, well, it's getting easier. There's a lot more to be done on making it easy for me as an entrepreneur to do my business without the overhang of various notices that I get, various forms that I have to fill, etc. And as was highlighted, access to credit. How do I get access to formal credit without having to pay exorbitant rates in the market to get monies to get my business going? And lastly, in the longer term, I'll always be thinking about how is technology going to disrupt my existing business, right? What do I need to do to stay ahead of the curve and not get swamped by somebody else coming in with something that is faster, cheaper, better? So I think these will be the top 4 or 5 thoughts on my mind as an entrepreneur today.
Mr. Chawla, if I can come to you, what do you think is the current state of MSMEs? You interact with a lot of them through your Chamber of Commerce. Where do they currently stand? What are the pain points? What Mr. Bhardwaj spoke about and what Mr. Padaki spoke about seems to be, the same problems that keep, carrying on from year to year.
Well, I fully agree with both the speakers, Mr. Anil Bhardwaj as well as Mr. Rakesh, and all that they mentioned exactly stands. So just to re-emphasize on what they've already spoken, post-COVID recovery has been remarkable, and I'll just say that it's been almost V-shaped recovery for most of the sectors, barring a few. In fact, in 2022, sectors like tourism, hotels, restaurants, entertainment, all those sectors have also revived. In fact, try booking your ticket for Goa, flight or a hotel or something there, and you come to know where as if we are all traveling with a vengeance and we're trying to do more than what we lost earlier. Automobile sector, again remarkable. I agree that there have been disruptions this year, unusual disruptions, like, for example, the Ukraine-Russia war. And that naturally has a huge impact on European market and US market and globally. And because of that, some of our exports have not grown as much as they would have. And also the impact on, let us say, the dollar currency, the dollar rates, etc. Things have impacted us. And yet we are at a stage when our stock markets are equal to their peak of last year. And if you match globally, while many international markets are down 20-30%, Indian markets are the same almost. And if you look at the returns, especially from the, let us say, SME IPO sector, and it's phenomenal that this year more than 98 SMEs have already listed on IPOs, listed their IPOs, and while 38 main board companies. So it's more than twice the number of SMEs that are there. And if I give you just a small figure, just a couple of days back, a very small company, the Drone Acharya Innovation, it's an SME, and they came out with their IPO of 34 crore. And that IPO has been oversubscribed by 262 times. So against 34 crore, there is a committed amount of 5,800 crore, willing to buy those shares. So, and the issue just closed on 15th of December. So what I'm trying to say is that in the SME space, those who were prepared and those who were prepared in terms of technology, in terms of access to banking and credit, in terms of their marketing and other capacity preparations, they have reaped the best. And we do come across lots of challenges, and in the micro sector, of course, the challenges remain. But to give you a positive, outlook, I believe that there was never a better time to be in business. Of course, if I may say, I see a new challenge, and that is the challenge of sustainability. Both speakers have mentioned about that, and I would just re-emphasize. For example, in Delhi NCR, now we have CAQM, the Commission for Air Quality Management. Now they, for example, have ordered a complete ban on some fossil fuels and boilers and other technologies which were running industries earlier. So naturally, those industries today need to change. But let me remind everyone that a few years back, there was a similar ban on an auto rickshaw driver also, that every auto rickshaw in Delhi had to change from diesel to CNG. And this ban was imposed. Every bus had to do. So point is that till yesterday, it was the taxi drivers or the auto rickshaws, and then there was ban on crackers. And then, of course, everything impacts the micro sector the most. And then this year, on 1st of July, when single-use plastic ban came into picture, again, thousands or perhaps lakhs of MSMEs across India are impacted. And so this sustainability impact is perhaps the highest. And it's a new challenge. Industries are not yet prepared or accept. Let me just tell you that the latest notification of Uttarakhand, and now that is again a huge step. And very soon I find every state has to issue this, that today under the EPR, the extended producer's responsibility, let's say a company selling chips, potato chips or toffees or anything in plastic packaging, and which is being sold through retailers. Now that company has responsibility to collect all the packaging material that people would throw away somewhere. So, again, further responsibility even on the buyers, even on retail buyers, sellers, the entire supply chain, institutional buyers. So, and today there is also a restriction on the raw material supplier, that a raw material supplier can supply plastic raw material only to that industry which has a CTO, which has a formal consent from the Pollution Control Board. There are thousands of MSMEs across India who don't have CTO as on date. So in times to come, they will not be able to procure the raw material even if they wish to, because there is a ban on a large industry to sell raw material or scrap or anything, even for recycling, to an unapproved source. So I believe in times to come, especially with Government of India's commitment that put by 2070, we should be a net zero, economy. I believe many of these new regulations are going to be there. And therefore, SMEs need new technologies. They need to understand alternate raw materials or alternate businesses that would take place. And lastly, they would need institutional credit also to help them shift from their present business models to sustainable business models.
Right. So, Mr. Bhardwaj, we clearly seem to be, heading towards a state where MSMEs need to digitalize, get in more technology, even look at, expanding to overseas markets to be competitive. What can be done now to help these MSMEs climb the ladder when it comes to each of these aspects?
See, first of all, I would like to emphasize that whenever we have discussion on digitalization, unfortunately, the debate is confined only about e-commerce, usually. But the fact is that digitization is a very large concept. And the biggest challenge that MSMEs face is that, it means shredding the mindset of informality. Digital means, after all, that everything is recorded. So it's like, opening up your chest, exposing yourself. And there are vulnerabilities for sure. And that's why there are risks also involved. So that's why, the embracing or the speed of embrace in MSMEs with regards to digitalization is still very, very limited. And that too confined to certain aspects of processes and not entirely the enterprises. Secondly, as I said, the digitalization should not be seen from the narrow perspective of e-commerce. The need for MSMEs to quickly digitalize can't be overemphasized for sure. But a vast swath of MSMEs are not even automized. So the leap from make-do jugaad technology to digitally managed plants requires enormous amount of resources. Joining e-commerce bandwagon also requires a lot of capacity building and process management skills. Government is trying, of course. There is a World Bank assisted program called RAMP, where there is a huge outlay exclusively for this specific task, so that MSMEs could be enabled so that they could join the bandwagon of e-commerce, and at least through ONDC they could tap these new emerging markets. But the fact remains that digitalization of the entire process of MSMEs is the need of the hour, but there are huge gaps that exist there.
Right. Mr. Padaki, if I can come to you, every budget we hear about different schemes are announced. What is your assessment in the performance of these schemes? Do you think most of them have had the intended results? Not why?
So I think some of the schemes, especially post-COVID, the ECLGS scheme, which kind of made sure that credit was available for MSMEs hit by COVID and on an emergency basis. I think we've seen a lot of offtake of that scheme, and we've really seen MSMEs being benefited from these schemes. As on cue, we've also seen to a large extent private sector lending increase their footprint and through various digital tools being able to really create on-tap, on-demand loans available. So I think to an extent, some of these schemes have worked, but my key takeaway from all of these schemes is that even at the center state level, there are no dearth of schemes on paper. I think what really matters is how is it reaching, what is the awareness being created, and how is it being implemented on the ground, right? So if there is some sort of a single window, I know that's a too abused word, but if there's a nodal point in which if I am an entrepreneur, I can get access to what are the various kinds of schemes that are out there for me. There have been various portals that I've tried to do as well. MSME, Department of MSME itself has rolled out a couple of portals around this. But what we still see at various district and tehsil places is awareness is still very low. Information is held closely by a few people. It's not widely dispersed. And entrepreneurs still face a lot of challenges in accessing these schemes very easily. So I think the need of the hour is to probably even consolidate, bring these schemes together, take away the overlapping nature that exists in several schemes and make it really easy for the entrepreneur to access these schemes. And we'll probably come back to the women entrepreneurship later, which I think has to be double-clicked in a even more vigorous way. And how do you make it much more easier for women entrepreneurs to succeed? And again, there are schemes and there are various schemes, but how do you then get more and more people and more ecosystem actors talking about it? And how do we get that rolling on the ground? In my view, continues to be a challenge.
if you say, entrepreneurs in the tehsil and the district level have to be, made aware about such schemes, how do you do that? How do you empower people in, the tehsils and the district actually go out and tell entrepreneurs, hey, this is a scheme for you, this is a scheme that may benefit you? How do you do that? Whom do you empower in these?
Yeah, so that's the question and an opportunity here. There are no dearth of nodal agencies or entities at the district level. For example, you take the bank branch network, wide dispersion of bank branches. You take the district industries. Every district has an industry center, which is run by a joint director. You take industry associations that are active, right? So again, I don't think it is the lack of entities on the ground, but it's a lack of a coordinated effort between these entities to make sure that the information is available. Today, as an entrepreneur, I'm kicked around like a football when I go from one department to another to say, you know what, this is not my remit, you should go talk to them. Somebody else says, this is, this part I can handle, but that part you need to go to somebody else. So how do you then bring a synchrony of actions between various actors? Because all of us are operating in our own silos.
Right. Mr. Chawla, similar question to you, from all the schemes and policies that you have seen till now, what are the lessons around what works and what can be made better?
Okay. Some of the schemes which I found, as an entrepreneur and also as the IamSME office bearer from my members, some of the finest schemes today are no more around. And I really don't know why. And I also see no reason why those schemes have not continued and how they have outlived their lives. A scheme called, for example, CLCSS. The minute we talk about technology upgradation for, the biggest challenge that everybody identifies and the need for Indian SMEs to export, become better quality producers, and local becomes global, etc. Why this scheme? Why there's no budget for the scheme? Why this scheme ended in the year COVID came? In fact, this is all the more time to empower MSMEs and help do handholding for them. Similarly, lean manufacturing scheme, one of the finest schemes any government can give to its manufacturing MSMEs, a scheme that actually works around the year, and MSMEs are made world-class and something that can actually help transform. Then again, schemes like international cooperation, etc., highly diluted now that we see. So I find that these are some of the things. Also, I wonder why the MSME outreach program, which gave 2% subvention for incremental loans to the MSMEs, that also ended, and there has never been that ended in fact in 2020 March, and has never been extended thereafter. And I believe that an interest subvention for incremental loans is also an incentive for MSME sector to invest more, build more capacities, buy new technologies, etc. So some of these, I have no answer to these things. Maybe government is short of budget. Maybe they think that they've outlived the utility for. I believe that the MSME sector is really missing these fine schemes that I just mentioned. Having said this, I find that there are some excellent schemes announced by state governments. Now, which means that state government has somehow learned from the center and have introduced many schemes. And if for example, the marketing assistance scheme many state governments are giving to their entrepreneurs so that they can participate in international exhibitions, thereby increase their exports. Similarly, incentives for advanced technologies, incentive for energy efficiency drives, incentive for quality improvement. And so many of the state governments, I find, interestingly, governments like, for example, in Haryana, they've come out with their own MSME policy. And they have introduced interest subvention schemes for the backward districts, etc. So my point is that while some state governments have actually, taken the baton from the center and are doing great. So maybe SMEs in those states are not missing some of these central schemes. Having said this, that leadership of the Union Ministry of MSME, their flagship schemes that empower people across India, I believe that they must do some more activity and some more introspection, and maybe perhaps reintroduce some of those things. Also, it is time to look at CGT-MSE, for example. It's been quite a while that CGT-MSE has been there. It has benefited a large section. But then why now this limit cannot cover loans up to 5 crore? And for MSMEs which are really growing. And so it needs a bit of tweaking there and some improvisation on what is already there. Similarly, I would love the government to reintroduce CLCSS again. And that also not limited to 1 crore worth of technology and 15% of that, rather enhance it to 5 crore worth of technology and keeping a subsidy element at 15%, we don't mind. Point is that if I cannot avail of PLI, which is large, of course, for the larger outlay companies, as Mr. Bhardwaj also mentioned, where is the investment incentive or investment allowance for the MSME sector? So that is an element where I find missing. And previously, this incentive also came in the form of the interest subvention under the MSME outreach program, which of course is no more there now. So let's see how in times to come, and that is how we come to the budget expectations. That so the same are the things that we would expect that maybe this budget would address.
Entrepreneurs get what they want. So, Mr. Bhardwaj, what do SMEs want from this budget? What would the wish list look like?
Coming to the budget, we are aware that the government had to spend their way out of COVID, so there would not be a lot of resources, there would be resource constraints. So our suggestions primarily stands on 4 legs. We are just focusing on 4 pillars. One is banking and finance, where we are just saying about 2 things. One is BLR rating barrier that need to shift focus from return on investment to growth to solvency. What I'm trying to say is that we are requesting that the MSME sector at least should be rid of this third-party rating, which does not bestow any advantage neither to the borrower and nor the lender. Second is, we have to address the problems of prepayment penalties that are being imposed on MSMEs whenever they want to change the bank. And they, by doing so, the banks are defining their own code that they have signed on, that they would not be charging any prepayment penalties from micro and small enterprises. We have raised this issue with the RBI and will continue to press the government also on this issue. Second aspect that we have emphasized is about public procurement. See, first is whosoever is in public procurement business or supplying to government, they know that bulk of their working capital is consumed by arranging the bank guarantees. So last year, the finance minister announced that government would take steps so that the bank guarantees could be replaced by surety bonds, which would be issued by insurance companies. Some steps have been taken but still, especially in the sector of road network. But for the other sectors, we still have to see there's some progress in this area. And related to the public procurement remains the area of quality focus. If the government, which is the largest buyer, constituting almost 1/3 of India's GDP, so I'm talking about close to or more than $1 trillion of business that government in different layers of government, center to state and to local bodies, I mean, they procure. And if they start procuring good quality, or if you could create a system of like civil-like institution to capture supply record of good buyers, if you would help create capacities in the MSME space also for them, for whom there's already 25% of set aside is there in the central government purchases. Some state governments have also done it. So the point that we are trying to emphasize is that if you could improve the quality of public procurement, you would help build capacities in the MSME space, would supply not only to the government, but could supply to the world also. Third, we are focusing is about the industrial infrastructure. Most of the industrial areas, Rajiv ji knows it is in Faridabad, that most of the industrial areas are in shambles, particularly the old ones. And a comprehensive scheme for financing industrial area development is needed. And we also have to somehow see that there are reforms at how they are governed. Gujarat, for example, 75% of the tax that is collected from an industrial area is given to the industry association for the upkeep and upgrade of industrial areas. And that's why you see they are much better managed than the industrial areas in other countries. And finally, we are attracting the attention of the government to improve the capacity of the country. Capacity building is required of institutions, industry associations, and so on, with regards to standards. India is signing FTAs like, FTA with UK, there would be FTA with European Union also. We have recently signed FTA with Australia. But, signing FTAs does not help or does not create market access because there is hardly any tariff there. The problem is with regards to the standards. So there is a difference between our standard and their standard. So harmonization is needed. Secondly, we need testing labs whose certificates could be accepted by them. So we need mutual recognition agreements. So the point we are placing before the finance minister is that these market access opportunities that you are creating for the Indian industry would go waste if equal emphasis is not given on standards.
Mr. Padaki, same question to you. What will DFA provide this budget?
No, I think these are excellent suggestions by what Mr. Bhardwaj put out as FISME. I just want to think a little out of the box to add a few more dimensions to this. One, how do we get our youngsters and youth studying in various colleges in a particular district or a city to get exposed to work being done by MSMEs, and therefore can MSMEs also get additional resources as interns? I'm not talking of the more structured apprenticeship program, but I'm even thinking of, can there be some sort of an internship program that is done together where an intern working with an MSME, the MSME can be, can have some resources where they can pay for these interns for and get some work done while giving, adequate exposure to these students. We still need to think through the mechanics, but I'm just wondering that one of the key elements that we continue to face year after year, and it's not the problem of any particular government, is how do you really inspire and engage local youth to think entrepreneurially? And what do you do to create entrepreneurial career paths for them? And it begins with an exposure. It begins with an awareness to say, this is what a micro enterprise is, and these are the opportunities here, right? So that's one area that I would love to figure out what we can do together. The second area that I want to kind of think through is, how do you incentivize MSMEs to go the digital technology formalization route? And what kind of subventions can you create on the lending side or the speed of the process itself? Right? Can we start looking at nudging MSMEs positively to adopt some of these mechanisms and methods that are out there? And can we kind of do a limited period scheme to kind of flush as many people out through this process as possible, right? Because one of the questions that I heard MSMEs say is, when we when we talk about digital technology, well, there is always a longer term window. A lot of people think that the worst case scenario is quite far away. Well, in reality, it is not. It is hurtling at us much faster than what we think it is. What are the nudges we can do for people to act? And can there be an external nudge? And lastly, for women entrepreneurs and women-owned and women-led entrepreneurs, I think there's a lot to be done, right? In terms of access to finance, access to markets. Again, there are schemes and schemes galore, but we're still seeing the same, we're still stuck in the same labor force participation rate, especially for women. Enterprises continue to be in single-digit numbers. So how do we then, what are the nudges and incentives for women entrepreneurs to kind of strive beyond what they're doing today? And how do we create an environment where they're encouraged to step outside their comfort zones and reach for the skies?
Right. Mr. Chawla, similar question. What do you think should be a part of budget this year?
Well, that of course FM would know what would be part of the budget, but our hope, expectation, or you can say demand or whatever, what we're looking at is, and at the cost of repeating a couple of points, I'll first say that let's hope that the FM in this budget gives clear indication to RBI and to everyone that it is time to permanently abolish the most sinful prepayment penalty foreclosure charges from the banking system. And MSMEs are really suffering. We know hundreds of MSMEs who post-COVID, the fear of defaulting in their car payment would like to sell their car and make a prepayment for a car loan, or reduce their business loan size, or in desperate search for better interest rates if they want to shift the bank. The prepayment, very sinful and I think most unethical charge, in spite of many banks signing the banking code of conduct and the IBS also agreed to, they have repeatedly failed the sector. And I'm happy that organizations like FISME and even us, we've repeatedly, tried to, find some solutions, but then that this struggle needs to go away with. And I'm sure one direction from RBI can do it away. But let's face it, SIDBI, which is the Small Industries Development Bank of India, they take prepayment charge and prepayment penalty. While thankfully there are some banks now in the private sector that have very clearly announced that on their websites that it's easy in, easy out, and no prepayment thing. So this is one. The second is I would also like some indication from FM to the banking sector to look beyond LTV. The traditional LTV giving only 60% of the market value of a collateral or 70%, etc. I think it is time to do away with. I know a number of entrepreneurs who are doing amazingly well and who are growing very fast. And for example, with small loans of 5 crore, 6 crore, they had a home loan or a factory to offer as a collateral. Now with their increasing turnovers, doing business, they're touching businesses worth 100 crores now. So when they go to their bank for enhancement of their CC limits, etc., in spite of their great track record, the banks still look at the collateral value and the LTV. So it is time that the banks are shown a way and some encouraged to go beyond the collateral value and fund the growing performing SMEs. So perhaps some empowerment or some encouragement is required by the bank, and they need to look beyond LTVs. I would also expect that there is a larger budget for the Ministry of MSME, so that some of the schemes which Ministry of MSME has been traditionally running and which are not there now, perhaps a budget is allocated for that. CLCSS, for example, the budget can provide for that. and something that will, and really do the capacity building in the MSME sector in terms of technology upgradation. I also believe that it is time to incentivize the green revolution in the MSME sector, or the green initiatives of the MSME sector, sustainability areas. Now, whether it is through the bank, a separate line of credit, so that they get concessional rates of interest for sustainable technologies and movement towards there. It is extremely important, and this initiative, I hope, ministry, our budget would indicate and show a roadmap there. I also look at a time when capital gains. Now, for example, it is time to, if I sell a home, there is some capital gain, and if I reinvest in a home, buy a home, then it's exempt from capital gains. But if I sell an asset and use that capital gain to invest in my business, small business, maybe because on account of the fact that no bank is giving me loan, there is a capital gains tax. So I believe that this is also one step there, that if an SME sells off an asset and invest that money in the business, capital gain tax should be exempted. And it's a small thing, and I'm sure government can do this.
Right. Last question before I let all of you go is, how do you think 2023 will pan out? A lot of uncertainties, a lot of permutation and combination problems go into it. Starting with you, Mr. Bhardwaj, what does 2023 look like?
Well, it's difficult to really peep into the future, but the way things are emerging, it is very clear, as has been indicated recently by government itself yesterday, that the growth is going to be paired this year than what it was during the current financial year. So situation definitely is not very, very great. Most of our major markets to whom we are exporting are getting either straight away into the recession or contracting. And that means in order to clock the same amount of growth as Government of India has indicated, that is approximately 4% or so, we'll have to work really hard and may have to find new markets with new product categories, and we'll have to see beyond the traditional markets and beyond the traditional products.
Also, 2020, 21, the central bank was on your side. It wanted to support MSMEs, it wanted to support small businesses. Now it's clearly fighting inflation. Do you think that will also be a factor?
Absolutely, absolutely, no doubt.
Okay, if we can come to you, a little bit of crystal ball gazing. How does 2020 look like?
Yeah, as I said, it's very hard to kind of, especially with all the factors out there, you don't know what's going to happen. And we recently, yesterday, seen the possible specter of COVID rearing its ugly head again. Fingers crossed, hopefully we will all, ride this, whatever wave that happens, much, much more easily. But having said that, I think opportunities continue to exist for our entrepreneurs. I couldn't agree more and say that I think it is India's time now. We're seeing a lot of opportunities emerge at the intersection of technology and sustainability. For all the entrepreneurs out there, my suggestion would be to wear your growth mindset hat, keep looking for opportunities, embrace change before it can engulf you. So look at what's happening on the climate change, on the sustainability, both at the regulatory and at the opportunity intersection, and look at what technologies we can use to improve productivity, to add better features or whatever on our products. And I think growth will be there. But of course, we'll have to work much harder and hope that some of the waves or some of the waves that will hit us won't drown us. But that apart, I think as an entrepreneur, I'm extremely optimistic of the times that we are in. And I think especially for growth-oriented entrepreneurs, this is the time.
Right. Mr. Chawla, we'll let you have the last word. How does 23 look like?
2023, the year of infinite possibilities. And I can only see or foresee a hope also, keep my fingers crossed that perhaps Russia-Ukraine war would come to an end. And because it's already going on. I doubt if it is going to escalate. It can only come down at some stage, So if that happens, it will be a great relief. And I expect that to happen soon. I don't think that's going to, that hopefully it should not last very long. There are challenges of, for example, the China skirmishes and other things that we are, of late, the news is all around. I believe that India has very firmly, stood up to that kind of a challenge. The government is firmly in place and taking all possible steps. And therefore, it is something which I hope will not dampen the spirits either of the markets or the local investments. The scenario, by and large, entrepreneurs are very, very confident.
I think we clearly have the expectations, from the SME sector, and we'll have to see how much of that turns into reality. For that, we'll have to wait for budget day. So thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Bhardwaj, Mr. Padaki,
Thank you.
and Mr. Chawla. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the conversation. Bye.
Thank you, sir.